Lesson 8.7, slope-intercept form. So we're talking about an equation that represents a line, and the slope-intercept form is called that because when you look at it, you can see directly the number that stands for the slope and the number that stands for the y-intercept. So the form looks like this: y equals mx plus b. Really important that you know that. Y equals mx plus b. The m, we've already said earlier, stands for slope, and the b, strangely enough, stands for the y-intercept. So because y is over here on the end, obviously you couldn't use y again for this, but the y-intercept is actually the number where the line crosses the y-axis. So if you had a graph like this, and then you had a line, let's say it crosses right here, this point is called the y-intercept. And when you have the slope-intercept form, that's telling you exactly where it's crossing the y-axis, and that's how you'll start graphing these. And we're going to graph lines today. This form is a really quick way to graph. So first thing you're going to do is you're going to get equations in slope-intercept form, and you just have to identify the slope and y-intercept. And when you do that, this is what I want you to do. Y equals 2x plus 3, I want you to write m equals, and then write the slope, and b equals, then write the y-intercept. So Trayton, on the first example, what's the slope? 2. And what's the y-intercept? 3. So on your homework, all you're going to have to do is put m equals and b equals, and then tell what the numbers are. They're going to be in the form y equals mx plus b. You're just pulling those numbers out. All right, let's look at the second example. Y equals 1/3 x minus 4. You're going to put m equals and b equals. Layla, what do you think the slope is? 1/3, 1/3. And what is the y-intercept? Okay, yes. The minus in front of it has to be attached to it. It is actually -4. All right, the next one, y equals 2/5 x. So you're still going to have to say m equals and b equals. Okay, so the first part, the m, is pretty obvious. The b, not so much. So Trayton, what's the slope?
2/5.
2/5. And what is the y-intercept? 0. Because there's no number here on the end, it must be plus 0. Of course, they're not going to write that, so you just can assume that the y-intercept is 0. Okay, now the next one, where y equals 7, looks a little different, but it's still slope-intercept form. There's no x term. So Tori, what do you think the slope is?
0.
Yeah, the slope is 0 this time, because what happened there was really this. Y equals 0 times x plus 7. Well, 0 times anything falls out, and that's why it just says y equals 7. So Tori, what's the y-intercept on that one? 7. So you will have to identify the slope and the y-intercept from this form. The slope is in front of your x. The y-intercept is the constant term at the end. Questions about that? All right, now we're going to use that information to graph lines. So we at first we're given slope equals 2 and y-intercept is 3. So the first few examples here, they give us the slope and y-intercept. The next couple, they give it to you in an equation, and you'll just have to pull out the slope and y-intercept and then graph from there. So I'm going to switch back and forth here because my graphs are down below. So the first example says that slope is 2. So I'm going to write it beside my grid here. slope, or M, was 2, and the B, the y-intercept, was 3. So here's how you do this. You always start with the y-intercept. That is telling you specifically what point on the y-axis it's crossing. Remember, the y-axis is your vertical one, so here it is. And since it says b equals 3, I go on 3 and put my first point. Now, slope, we've talked about a few days. It is defined as rise over run. And our slope is 2. Well, I have the rise, I don't have the run. How do you make 2 a fraction? Put it over 1. So what you do, once you get your slope as a fraction, rise 2, run 1. I go back to my y-intercept where it's at 3, and I rise 2, and I run 1, and put my point. So I went up 2, ran 1 to the right, and there I've got my other point. Now once you got your other point, you make your line, take it all the way through the graph, and put arrows on the ends. The arrows indicate it's a line. Don't just go between the 2 dots, make it a little longer, take up the graph. So for what we're doing, I want us to always run right today, because we're just starting this. Once you learn more about lines, you'll understand how you can really go either direction, but for now, you're going to rise and run right, unless you get a negative, and we'll talk about that in just a second. So my next example that you had was slope was 1/4, and the y-intercept was -4. So you start with the y-intercept at -4. So I put a point on my y-axis down here at -4. My slope, I know, is rise over run. And this time, it's got both numbers. Rise 1, run 4. So from my point at -4, I just rise up 1. I run 1, 2, 3, 4. Put my second dot. And then I draw my line. Questions about that? Okay, let's look at this one. The third one, it says slope is 2/5, and the y-intercept was 0. So that means that my point for the y-intercept is going to start here at 0, the origin, and it's rise over run, which is 2/5. I've got both numbers again, so I'm going to rise up 2, and I'm going to run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and put my second point. There's my line. Questions about that? Okay, let's do one with a negative slope then. It says my slope is -2/3, and my y-intercept is 4. Yeah. You want to tell me? Yeah, I'll let you do it. All right, so this one, you're going to start at your y-intercept. And the y-intercept is 4.
Oh.
So the y-intercept is 4. Okay, and now the slope is -2/3. And since it's negative, we are not going to rise 2. We're going to fall 2. So you fall 2, and you run, we're still running right every time, 3. And put your second point. And then draw your line. So what is happening here is that is a negative slope line. So when you look across the graph from left to right, it should be going downhill, and it is. If you went down and ran left, that would actually be two negative directions. It would end up being positive. So for today, we are always going to run right. So if it's a positive slope, you rise, and if it's a negative slope, you fall. Questions about that? I will just say, when you are given the problem and you see the slope, you should have in mind whether it's going to go uphill or downhill every time. Okay? I do want to talk about the one that was y equals 7, only we don't have 7 on our graph. So I'm going to change it, and I'm going to say y equals 2, just so that you can see. That equation where y equals 2, or actually we said y equals 7, but what is the slope when it's just y equals some number? What's the slope, Tori? 0, and then the y-intercept is whatever number's there, which would be 2. When this happens, you put your point at 2. Since the slope is 0, think of 0 fun at perfect norths. 0 fun, a slope that is completely horizontal, would be 0 fun. So that would be the line when you just have y equals a number. It's a horizontal line through that number. All right, there were 2 more examples at the end where they gave you the actual equation. Y equals 2/3 x minus 1. So from this, we have to pull out the slope and the y-intercept. So somebody that hasn't answered a question today, tell me what's the slope and the y-intercept. Cece, what's the slope? 2/3. And what is the y-intercept? -1. So you start at that y-intercept down at -1 on the y. Make sure you're always starting on the y, not the x. And from here, I'm going to rise up 2 and run 1, 2, 3. And put my second point and graph my line. Okay, last but not least, let's do y equals -3x plus 4. So somebody that hasn't answered, tell me what the slope and the y-intercept is. Stephen, what's the slope?
The slope is
-3. -3, and the y-intercept is
4.
4. So I start on my y at 4. Now remember, I need rise over run, but it's just a -3. So that means I have to put -3 over what? 1. So I'm going to fall 3, run 1 right, and then graph my line. So that is y equals -3x plus 4.